there has to be sort of a give and take. And if you want to have that work-life balance, I think, you need to relinquish a bit of control and
Yeah.
trust your team with different things.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I was so young when I started my first business, and it took me a lot to trust people.
Welcome to Unplugged, the tech podcast for digital entrepreneurs. I am one of your hosts, Brooke, the founder of the Sober Biz Collective.
Hey, podcasters. My name's Nate Kelly, best-selling author and founder of Podcast Revolution Studios. If you're looking for tech, tools, and tips on how to utilize podcasting for your business, you're in the right spot. Let's get unplugged. Viv Guy is an online audience growth expert, serial entrepreneur, and host of Podcast Sales Made Easy, a #1 marketing podcast. She teaches entrepreneurs how to build fulfilling and profitable businesses by helping them to accelerate their audience growth and make more sales without relying on social media or paid ads. Viv has a background of 19 years in business and generated almost $9 million in sales from her award-winning businesses, which she started from scratch at age 22 without social media or a website, and wanted to teach entrepreneurs how to create sustainable businesses. Please welcome Viv Guy.
Hey, Viv.
Hi, Brooke. Hi, Nate. How are you both? Thank you so much for having me here.
Welcome.
Thanks. I'm really excited to get into this topic because it's something I'm really passionate about. But as we said before we got to recording, you're going to have to rein me back in because I can talk about this topic for hours and hours, if not days and days.
Well, our focus is sort of bringing this podcast tech and this digital focus to online entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is the perfect focus. Why don't we dive right in? Let's start a bit about your own entrepreneurial journey and how we have gotten to accolades and awards at such a young age as an entrepreneur, and to really today and how it has become this marketing focus. Tell us a bit about your own journey.
Sure. So this makes me feel really old when I say 20 years ago now. My gosh, 20 years ago, when I was the very young age of 22, I decided I wanted to start my own business because I was working with a touring theatre company at the time, and we were doing sort of rural touring theatre. And then they sat down and said, we want to do the business plan and get everyone's involvement. What do you want to do? And I was like, I really want to work with at-risk, disengaged young people, because my parents fostered. So a lot of people that were kind of in the system. And I really saw how, with all the emotional turmoil that was going on that as adults would struggle with, that they really struggled with mainstream education. And I was a creative through and through. So I was like, I want to do something to really help these people with my creative skills. And I want to work with these at-risk young people. And the theatre company I was working with at the time were like, no, they seem really challenging. We don't really want to work with those kind of people. So I was like, okay, I need to do this now on my own. And so I decided, clueless about business and everything, I'm going to start my own business. So I did. And again, I was, gift of the gab, as my mum always said, got out there, started connecting with people and schools that were working with, particularly working with young people who were disengaged and had generally been kicked out of mainstream school. So I started doing sort of creative drama, dance-based workshops with these young people. And we started seeing really great results with them. And their teachers were going, wow, when they get to actually their curriculum core-based maths and literacy subjects, they're way more focused after they've had a session with you. And I was like, this is cool. And literally the business just exploded. They would tell someone else and they'd go and speak to this person. And I did. And it grew and grew and grew. And eventually it grew into a full alternative education college for young people. So we were helping young people who were really fallen by the wayside in the system to get jobs and kind of careers, and from kind of doing nothing to this. And then we started working with young adults with disabilities and really complex health needs who kind of left school at 18 and just ended up in daycare centers with 90-year-olds dementia and things. And it was like, wow, this is just not right. So we started working. And so, like I said, huge business, like blew up out of like all of this stuff because there was a need, and this is it. I go where the need is. And it, was where the passion was. So that's kind of how my business started. I did say I'd try and be succinct, but it's 20 years, there's quite a lot of history here.
It's all great.
Yeah.
That's actually so incredible. And you're speaking my language, because I, was a troubled youth, and I found so much healing and my success in things that I do today, even through like online media. I used to create videos and things with my little brothers, and it's just like this escape, right? You make your own world. You have all this control over this world that you're creating through whatever kind of creative outlet you have. So what a powerful way to help support young people. How did you get into that? Like, did you have a background in theater and that as well? Or is this just like you thought you needed it?
Yeah, I teach business and marketing now, but actually my degree was in drama and English lit. And I danced
beautiful.
as well. So that was like the creative roots. And then obviously I went on to become this like CEO of this humongous like 7-figure organization. And I remember one of my coaches, my first ever coach, saying to me, she said, "You just crack me up like you sometimes, because you have skipped like steps 1 to 9 that most people do as they work their way up the ladder. And you've kind of skipped them. But so some of the like really obvious things that you'd expect like CEOs to know, I didn't know because I'd never learned those things, because I just kind of just literally had to take on this CEO role. So it was really interesting to like an outsider who had like years of experience and had been like worked her way up the ladder to kind of see the gaps in my knowledge. And obviously that's like the beauty of coaching and mentorship and kind of how I ended up and where I am today.
Do you think that there was a bit of theatrics and acting when you first started the business? We hear fake it till you make it.
Freaking
yes, that's what it sounded like to me.
I don't think I went in with like, I'm faking it till I make it. I think I was just so confident, the 22-year-old naivety, like totally like, I just said to he's now my husband, but then my boyfriend, I was like, I think I'm just going to start a business. Just like that. I remember we were walking on a promenade by the sea one day. I'm just going to start a business. They don't want to do what I want to do. I think what I want to do is great. So I'm going to start this business. And I did. So it's naivety, but this confidence and also that passion. So I started that business, grew it to 7 figures, got awards for obviously, changing lives, like awards for being like innovators in our local communities and authorities and things like that. I remember being on holiday, not even receiving our first award. I had to send my team to receive it, and I was in Mexico or somewhere. I was like, I'm on holiday and I can't get to my first ever award ceremony. But it was amazing to have that. And I had an amazing team. And I think that's the beauty. People say, you did so much at such a young age. I said, I didn't do it. It was a team effort. And I always say, I didn't do it alone. And I say that even now, there's a team behind me helping me to like free up my creativity and my time to do what I'm good at and stay in my zone.
Oh my gosh, there's so much I want to pull out of that. First of all, the whole jumping in before you're ready or before you know anything and just saying like, I can do this, and having that like blind faith, I think is so important. I know a lot of entrepreneurs, we get stuck in like analysis paralysis and trying to have our business plan and everything in place before we get started. And then that's when things can become overwhelming because we get all caught up in that how. But just having that vision and the willingness to jump in and start because of that passion. And then the second thing, pulling a team that can be behind you to do the things and fill the gaps where you don't feel like you can take it all on, right? I think those are two really hard things for online entrepreneurs, because we're set up now. We can do so much on our own. There's AI, there's like all these tools we have. We can take it on, all of it. And then I feel like we burn out and we crash, and that work-life balance that I know you're very passionate about becomes very skewed. And
I did not have work-life balance with the first business. I was literally married to the business, and I was so unhealthy. Like I probably should have become a burnout coach or something, because I lived like that really unhealthy lifestyle, 60 to 80 hour weeks. But I loved what I did so much, but I did push myself so hard. And I took on such an emotional weight for a lot of like the people I was involved with as well. And people sometimes say, oh, maybe you're a bit of an empath, and maybe I am, I don't know, but I do take on that, because I want everyone to be happy.
There has to be sort of a give and take. And if you want to have that work-life balance, I think, you need to relinquish a bit of control and trust your team with different things. Can you perhaps give some tips to new entrepreneurs who haven't been able to relinquish anything
Absolutely.
yet, or add to a team and be able to trust with that growth?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I was so young when I started my first business, and it took me a lot to trust people. Like, the team was there, and it did come with time. I was able to step back, but like when I designed my second and this third business, I was like 20-hour weeks. So I think that was the difference. I went in kind of thinking, what do I need now? As well as what can I offer? The first time I was just all about helping everyone else, and I kind of came like second. And I think it's got to be, what do I want my life to look like? This is my business I'm creating. So I'm a reverse engineer everything, honestly. Anything everyone asks me, I'll be like, let's start at the end and work it backwards.
So smart.
When I started, I went, right, that wasn't very healthy. I did, there were a lot of sacrifices that I made, that some of those were bad decisions, at sort of precious times. And so actually I was like, what do I want? Well, I want to work 20 hours a week. Is that crazy? Because I'm having kids and I was about to start a family, and I was like, I don't want to be that mom that's like never there and working crazy hours. So it was design it backwards. And then I was like, so how much do I want to make? What do I need to do to make that happen? And what's the support team? I was putting in systems from like day one when I started my coaching and mentoring business, whereas she was like, not at all. And she kept like 5 years on, she's still trying to kind of put systems in place, and she's finding it really difficult now because of the workload. Whereas I was like, systems, because I knew SOPs, bring in a team, it's all there. And that was the thing, I think, sort of design it, design the 6-figure, 7-figure business, well, maybe not 7 figures, but 6 or multi-6 figures, that you kind of think that's what I'm aiming for in those first few years with that business. Design that, what that needs to look like to an extent. Now, you may not be able to afford everything, but at least if you say, right, I want to have this system in place, write an SOP, maybe you're going to be doing it yourself, but actually then think, what are the first things I'm going to outsource?
Oh my gosh, that is so important to look at. And I feel like it's a little bit of an ego check. Like, you really got to get around yourself and realize there's some things that even if you can do them, you don't need to, you don't have to, and they're going to take way more time out of your busy schedule if you try to.
Or you won't do them. That's the thing, isn't it? And that's the biggie. What are the things that are mission critical that you avoid, that and actually look at your week and go, that's been moved week after week, and actually, oh, now I can see I don't have any clients because I didn't do any audience growth because I didn't like it. So actually that activity, either I need to change the strategy or the tactic, or I need to outsource it. Okay, like bringing a team member to take that bit on. Yeah.
Right. So when you started creating this plan for your business, did you plan to like grow without social media? Was that like the from the get-go?
Great question.
Yeah.
The first business, social media didn't exist. That's how long ago it was, like 20 odd years ago. And then I was like, right, starting my second business, kind of got bored. This sounds terrible. Bored of the first business. And I was working all these crazy hours, and it's still going to this day. It's amazing. Like, the legacy is still there, and I love it. And I love the work that's still happening. So that still happens. So it was all the stuff that I didn't really enjoy doing. And I should have, like, now looking back, outsourced it. But I was like, I need a change. I want to go creative again, get back to like working with people and, the people that I care about. I'm having kids. Why not start a business while I'm having kids? Makes sense. So I did. And I started, and this obviously took me into the online space. I started a brand photography business, personal brand photography for entrepreneurs. And that's the first experience I really had of using social media to market my business. And I hated it from the day I started, because I wasn't that generation like my sister, who kind of grew up like on Instagram. It wasn't something I really had used. So I came into it kind of going, right, okay, social media, yeah, okay, everyone says I've got to be on here. So, because obviously I'd had great coaches with the first business. So I was like, right, coaches, what do you say? And they all say, social media, be on Facebook, grow your Facebook audience to 1,000 people. And that's the magic, you'll suddenly have like money coming in and it'll be consistent. I was like, okay. So I did that, and I was like, I hate this. And I hated Mondays, which are my content batching days. And I just didn't like this feeling of being switched on all the time and it not really being like real connection with people. Because I built that first business on conversations, like real conversations, speaking to people, you know. And I say like face to face, like we're face to face now. I know it's on a Zoom, but at least we're having like a conversation. It's not just like 3 lines on a sort of text message or comments thread or something.
Right.
So it was real conversations. But I got hooked. I got absolutely hooked on social media. And I remember like my daughter, my eldest, and she came over to me one day. She was like, Mummy, look at me and my princess. And I was busy on my phone because, you know, it's like you start comparing yourself to other people. Oh, look, they're doing really well. Oh, yeah. And, you know, and people always like, you've got to be really quick to respond. Be quick to respond or they'll go somewhere else. And I was like, okay. So I was like always on this like edge of like, ugh.
It does drive you mad.
Yeah.
So I felt so hooked. And my daughter was going, Mommy, please look at me, I'm a princess. And she literally came and like pushed my phone down from my face and went, please look at me, Mommy, I'm a princess. And I was like, oh my God, this is not who I want to be. I've kind of designed this 20-hour business. It's 20 hours plus all the hours where I'm sat with my phone, like glued to my hand and not looking at my gorgeous kids. So I was like, oh, this isn't healthy. But I kept going because I was like, got to be on social media. And the business evolved, and I was working with some amazing entrepreneurs with the brand photography, but I ended up doing a lot of coaching in terms of like marketing and growing their audiences and getting more visible and it just evolved into, and I grew that business really quickly. So I had other photographers saying, Viv, how did you grow it so fast, like so successfully? And so I was like, oh, okay. So I started doing like some ad hoc bits of coaching and mentoring, and it just evolved. And I was like, this is it, isn't it? This is the calling. This is what I should be doing. So I transitioned. So I had a year transitioning over to sort of from the photography into the coaching and mentoring. We spent that year with me slowly kind of pulling away from social media and doing a lot more of what I love, which is connecting with people, like properly making connections. I wasn't podcasting quite then, but I interestingly was attracting a huge amount of clients who were saying, I don't want to be on social media. My message then was not market without social media. Mine was market in an aligned way, whatever that meant. But, you know, it was not explicitly without social media, but I was literally in my brain going, I hate social media. I need to market without social media. That's how I want my business to be. And I was attracting all these people. So I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And then my coach just went, I think you've got to make a decision. Like, are you in? Because I was kind of like still dabbling a little bit with social media, but not a lot. So it's like, it wasn't doing a lot for my business, but I still felt this like, I have to be here because everyone's been drilling it into me. I've got to be here, even though everything's saying you don't, because that's not where the business is coming from.
I think we've all been now trained that way trained or brainwashed, however you want to put it. But yeah, I think Viv, you make a great point. Sometimes you find your way to your specialty or to a peak of your business through trial and error and through finding what you're great at and how you can help others to achieve the same. So I love that fact.
Yeah. And I think it's so important sometimes to kind of question. And I don't know why. Maybe I was just in that new mum mode with like fuzzy, sleepless nights and everything. I don't know why I didn't question and I remember my husband saying, when one day I went, I don't think I'm going to market on social media anymore. And my husband, and I was like, but I'm a little, there's fear. And I said to him, I'm afraid because it didn't exist with my first business. It does exist now. So am I really am I taking like a ridiculously stupid risk doing this? And he was like, you've grown a 7-figure business without social media. Just because it's here, yeah, it's great in a lot of ways. But if it's not, it doesn't work for everyone. And if it did work for everyone, like the 50 million entrepreneurs that are on, like small business owners that are using social media, would all be like multi-6 and 7-figure business owners, wouldn't they? We just know that's not the case. So I'm like, it is such it's so like such a valid point, isn't it? So. But I was like, I'm going in a week. And within a week, I said, I'm leaving social media. I'm going to leave my profiles here as like a digital business card saying, hey, I'm not here. Come on, hang out with me here, but I'm not going to be posting content. And a week later I went. And it's really interesting because I did a 1 year without social media podcast episode with my accountability buddy.
Ooh.
And we got my journal out from the time and I read some of the stuff that I was feeling in the week before and then the week afterwards. And it's so interesting, like the thoughts and things that were going through my head at that time, like the doubts, but also then I was like, wanted to shake everyone and go, don't you know, you don't need to be on social media. There's other ways to kind of grow a business.
So where do you say that you direct people, I'm not posting on social, come hang out with me here. Where do you direct them to?
Then I decided to launch a podcast pretty much simultaneously to coming off social media, because I'd wanted to do it for ages, but I was so time poor because of the amount of time I was spending on the hamster wheel of social media content creation.
Yes.
That I didn't. And
Yes.
I say to people, as soon as I left social media, I freed up so much time to be, and it was the creative headspace that I didn't know that I was missing. That once I stopped being on social media, I had this headspace to kind of think. And I like I said, I just didn't realize it was missing from the business. And so within crazy speed, 2 weeks, I launched a podcast. I kind of had been like, I might launch a podcast, to here it is. And I hit number 1 in the marketing charts. So I was like that. It was just crazy. I was like, here it comes, podcast. I launched a group program and like I hit my highest revenue earning months ever. It was just crazy. Like, and I had so many people go, we are watching you closely, like in my network, because we are intrigued by this whole without social thing. You're either going to totally sink or you are going to like just fly. So it was really interesting that the people were like, it's one or the other. And luckily it was the positive, which was it just flew. And I think because I had that time, that energy, that space, and for me, a way to really properly connect with people again, which was conversation, with my listeners, but also like with the people that were coming on, and we were having like interviews and conversations and connecting, leading to collaborations, all of those things, like audience, I'm always like borrow audiences, share audiences, because that is the fastest way to grow. If you're not, you've got paid ads, you can buy, build, or borrow an audience. Let's borrow audiences. It's the fastest way for you. And I still stand by that to this day. It's the foundation of what I teach. So yeah, so that kind of is the journey. That was a really long answer to get to podcasting and how I started my podcasting journey.
I love that so much, and I noticed, like, with my own business, 90% of my clients, I do web design and some graphic design work, and 90% of my clients are just word of mouth. Like, I worked with somebody, they referred me to someone else. My social media is just, basically, like you said, a business card, right? And I used to put so much attention and energy into it, but as my business was growing and I was working with clients, I just didn't have the ability, and it didn't affect my business at all. Like
And this is the thing, isn't it? Like social media, it's not, and I think this is why there's a lot of people and newer entrepreneurs getting sucked into the whole, you have to be on social media, because there's people out there teaching who started their businesses and utilized social media, back when it first came on the scene, like 10, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, like Facebook and things, Meta, were new on the scene. And even people like that maybe started 5 years ago now, at the time of recording this, who were able to grow like Facebook audiences very quickly, groups quickly, organically, I say as well, and would get amazing reach and engagement. And it's just not, that is not what those platforms, they've been developed over time because they're profit making, they're not for profit organizations. They're there to make money. So they are, the reality is they're pay to play machines. So organic audience growth and then reach, so nurturing your like existing audience, is really difficult. So reaching new people and then reaching the people who are already there, it's pants. Like, and this is where you just don't get the return on investment. So for me, with a 20-hour business, I was always, what is the big, like, what is going to give me the highest return on investment? And I knew that's that year when I started to coach a business, I was like, it's not social media, but I wasn't sure what it was. And then it was absolutely like leveraging other people's audiences. And obviously word of mouth is great. And I absolutely love word of mouth. But again, it's not consistent. You want, to grow and scale a business, you have to build a machine, that's what an engine, that you can generate consistent like audience numbers. So you can go, right, every month I know I need to bring in 200 like new like people to my email list, to my audience. I need to have 20 sales calls, and I need to convert 50% of those to hit my sales targets, to hit my enrollment targets. So we need, it's math. It is just math, the creative that turned mathematician. And
It is
business,
math.
it is just math, it's formula. And that is business, and as business, we're mathematicians and scientists, aren't we?
Oh, I totally agree. I actually find this is one of the best ways to network, like aside from building our audiences and sharing audiences, but just meeting the people, getting to hear their stories, sitting down for half an hour, and really digging into like who you are and what you offer. Like I've built so many collaborations. That's how me and Nate really got connected as friends. And, like a lot of my business is built off of that. And I find like if you sit down with somebody for half an hour, and you really get to know them, it's really hard not to fall in love with them. I feel like a lot is missing on social media because we're just seeing little tiny clips and clickbait and things that are going to cause controversy to get more views and all that kind of stuff, right? So this has just been such a breath of fresh air, really just getting to dig in and really know somebody and hear the story behind it.
And understand the psychology as well, isn't it? Of
Mm.
like, what is social media designed as? An entertainment platform. People are not there. They're not logging on to kind of have their life changed and kind of go like, how, think about how you use Google. Like, how do I market my business without social media? People search for that. I come up in that search. I'm much more of a podcaster. I'm not, I think it's like a vocal blog, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Totally.
Is a way that is going to reach people because of the SEO that people can search. So we are discoverable through search engines, and that's the thing. Those people that come in and searching for a solution, they're way warmer and ready, like more ready to buy already because they're looking for an answer. And it's proven like people are like more educated that are listening to consuming blogs and podcasts and things like. Household income's higher. The stats are just crazy, like compared to obviously like consumers on social media. And we can talk about this all day. I won't go into all of that. We'll be here on stats for hours. But yeah, like it's just the arguments for, why use podcasting over social media. It's ROI every time.
If you don't know what ROI is, it's return on investment. So basically, like the time you put into podcasting, you're going to get a much larger return than
Yes.
spending the same amount of time on social media, typically.
As long as you know how to podcast correctly, and that's there are, but like any strategy, like any thing that you do, you put you work on in your business, you have to understand like the fundamentals that make it successful or not successful. And I think that's where people going kind of very blinkered to a lot of strategies, which is they just don't, they kind of think, I've seen such and such do. I've seen Amy Porterfield or James Wedmore or someone podcast. That looks like a good idea. And I'm just going to start a podcast without actually understanding like what makes it, like, how do you make it successful? How do you make it so it's going to attract audiences? How do you make it so it's going to nurture and like retain the people that do tune into it? So how do you grow it? How do you like, and then how do you convert people? Because we can, my first podcast, like first episodes, I was just chatting on, like, it's Viv, it's great. And everyone's like, we love your energy. I'm like, yeah, but I need to be converting, so actually what is the structure? What do I need to have in an episode to make it convert? And then actually what is beyond that? Because we can have calls to action, but a lot of people, it's like kind of dropping off the edge of a cliff, where you kind of go, okay, here's my call to action, but now what? How do I actually take them to the sale? And that's often the bit that's missing. So yeah, you've got to be able to put it all together and like think about it. So as much as I'm absolutely go take the action, just think before you do, because if you're going to put this time and energy into creating something, make sure it's going to actually, you're going to be able to like make a profit from it and make it work for you if that's your intention with your podcast.
I love it. Speaking of call to action, let's get into it. How can our audience get in touch with you and all of the work you do? And what do you have to offer right now?
Okay, so best thing is come check out one of my free workshops. They run every single month, twice a month. Head over to the landing page, which is vivguy.com/workshop. So vivguy.com/workshop. It'll show you the next day of the workshop. Come join me. Come hang out with me for 60 minutes. Let's talk all about how to make your business and hit your first 6 or multi-6 figures using the power of podcasting. So cut down that content creation time. reach audiences and actually convert them into consistent clients. So hit your enrollment targets, guys. No more kind of thinking, can I fill this group program? Can I hit my sales targets every month? Can I fill my one-to-one coaching roster? We're going to do that. So come find out and hang out with me on that workshop. Alternatively, you can check out my website, vivguy.com. There's loads of free stuff on there. There's a link to the podcast and all sorts of other goodies.
We will link everything in today's show notes as well. I will be at those workshops, or at least check one out. I'm so curious about kind of this different approach. You know, we're so conditioned that social media is this be all end all. And I loved how you put it earlier, just being time poor and feeling so committed to content that isn't converting as well as some others. So Viv, such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on Unplugged as our first guest. VivGuy.com. Check it out in the show notes. Thanks so much, Viv.
Thanks, guys. I've loved every minute of today's talk.
Me too.
What a pleasure. So much fun. Thanks so much for hanging out today. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube for all of our video content at Unplugged Tech Pod.
And join us in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/unpluggedpodcast. Also, make sure to throw us a 5-star review if you are finding this content valuable for you and your digital business. We accept all forms of reviews, Apple Podcasts, Spotify follows, YouTube, telling your grandmother about us.
And make sure to share the episode with one person in your life and they find it valuable. And we'll see you next time on Unplugged.
I think it's good enough, and we're just going to keep getting better.